Hey, you guys, it's Miss Burkles,
You busy? It's Mrs. Klein.
and we are here with lesson 24, Heian-kyo, the heart of Japan's golden age. Our guiding question is, what was life like for aristocrats during the Heian period?
All right, you guys, there's only a few vocabulary words in this particular lesson. They are courtier, Heian period, and tale of Genji.
Starting off with our introduction, and we are on page 331 in the book. The culture of medieval Japan was rich and varied due to exchanges with other Asian peoples. These exchanges enabled a unique Japanese culture to blossom between the 9th and 12th centuries.
As you may know, Japan is close enough to the mainland of Asia to be affected by cultural ideas from that region. At the same time, the waterways separating Japan from the mainland in Asia helped to protect the Japanese from conquest by other Asian peoples.
For most of the 8th century, the city of Nara was the imperial capital of Japan. During this time, contact with China brought many new cultural ideas to Japan. Then, in 794, Emperor Kamu moved the capital of Heian-kyo, an event that marked the start of the Heian period, which lasted until 1185.
All right, the Heian period is often called Japan's golden age. During this time, aristocrats led a great flourishing of Japanese culture. In this lesson, we're going to learn a little bit more about Japan's golden age. You will examine how Heian aristocrats lived and how they created new kinds of Japanese art and literature.
Section 1, a new capital. During the 8th century, the Buddhist priests of Nara gained a great deal of influence over the Japanese court. In 784, Emperor Kamu decided to move his capital away from Nara, in part because he thought the priest's power was damaging to the government.
Kamu chose a village on the Yodo River, a site that was both lovelier than Nagaoka and easier to defend. There, Kamu began building a new city he called Heian-kyo. Kyo means city in Japanese. This event marks the beginning of the Heian period.
Heian-kyo, which is now the city of Kyoto, became the first truly Japanese city. Heian-kyo's crisscrossing streets were modeled after those of Chang'an, but the city's architecture was Japanese. In the center of the city were palaces and government offices. Wealthy Heian families lived in mansions surrounded by beautiful gardens with artificial lakes.
Daily life was very formal, and correct manners were extremely important in this particular culture, guys. You're going to need to know, like, you didn't want to step out of line, you didn't want to do anything wrong. Otherwise, you were not going to be welcomed.
Dang. Section 2, the rise of the Fujiwara family. By the mid 9th century, the real power in the imperial court shifted from the emperor to aristocratic families. The most important of these noble families were the Fujiwara, who controlled Japan for nearly 300 years.
The Fujiwara were never actually rulers. The Japanese believed that the emperor's family was descended from Japan's sun goddess. First, beginning in 858, the Fujiwara married many of their daughters into the royal family. Second, the Fujiwara acted as advisors to the emperor, which in reality gave them more power than the rulers that they guided.
The most successful Fujiwara leader was Fujiwara Michinaga, who led Japan from 995 to 1028. He was the father-in-law of 4 emperors and the grandfather of 3 more.
So he had a lot of power. All right, during his time in power, the Fujiwara family became even richer and built palaces, mansions, and temples. The Fujiwara family used their power to better their own lives. However, they also kept peace in Japan for nearly 3 centuries.
Section 3, social position in Heian court. Rank, as determined almost completely by the position of a person's birth family, was very important during this period. There were nine main ranks in the Heian court hierarchy. High court nobles appointed by the emperor filled the top 3 ranks. Less important officials filled the 4th and 5th ranks.
The 6th through the 9th ranks were filled by minor officials, clerks, and experts in such fields as law and medicine. The 9 main ranks were divided into classes such as senior and junior, upper and lower. In total, there were some 30 sub-ranks, each of which had specific privileges and detailed rules of conduct.
This precise ranking system also determined such matters as what color clothing a noble could wear and the height of the gatepost in the front of the family's home.
All right, beauty and fashion during the Heian period. Heian society prized beauty, elegance, and fashion. Individuals were judged on whether they had good taste, and the ability to recognize beauty was valued over qualities like generosity and honesty.
Both men and women groomed themselves with great care. Small pointed beards were considered attractive on male courtiers. For women, long hair was an important beauty feature.
The Japanese of this time considered white teeth unattractive. So, both men and women carefully blackened their teeth with a dye made from iron and other ingredients soaked in tea or vinegar.
For women, makeup was also important. Over the chalky white powder, a Han woman put touches of red on her cheeks and then painted a small red mouth.
A woman's clothing needed to be ornate and beautiful. An aristocratic woman might wear as many as 12 silk underrobes at one time.
The love of beauty also showed in Heian architecture, calligraphy, poetry, and artwork.
All right, moving on to section 5, entertainment at the Heian court. Heian-kyo's aristocrats had plenty of leisure time for sporting events, games, and contests. Men enjoyed watching horse races, archery contests, and sumo wrestling.
Groups of courtiers played a game called Kimari in which they kicked a leather ball back and forth, keeping it in the air for as long as possible.
Each of the many festivals and celebrations on the Heian calendar had its own customs. Many involved contests that tested athletic, poetic, or artistic skill.
Dancing was an important skill for Heian-kyo's nobles because dance was part of nearly every festival. Bugaku performances, which combined dance with music and drama, were a popular form of entertainment.
All right, moving on to section 6, sculpture and painting during the Heian period. During the Heian period, many artists continued to be influenced by Chinese art. Gradually, however, sculptors and painters created their own Japanese styles.
Early hand sculptors commonly made an entire work from a single piece of wood. Later in this period, sculptors made statues by carving separate pieces from carefully selected wood and then joining them.
Joko made perhaps the greatest masterpiece of Heian sculpture, the Amida Buddha. This beautifully carved Buddha, you can see a picture of it, you guys, on page 337, is also known as the Lord of Boundless Light, expresses a sense of deep peace and strength.
In painting, Heian artists consciously developed a Japanese style, which they called Yamate, or Japanese painting. Painters drew their scenes with thin lines and then filled them in with bright colors.
There were four main types of Yamato-e landscapes showing the four seasons, places of natural beauty, people doing seasonal tasks, and scenes from literature called story paintings.
Section 7, Writing and Literature during the Heian period. Writing was the most valued form of expression in Heian Japan. Everyone was expected to show skill in using words well.
Poetry was a part of daily life in Heian-kyo, and people were expected to compose poetry in public. Men and women carefully created poems to charm each other.
In earlier times, the Japanese had used kana, which was based on simplified Chinese characters, to write the syllables of their language. In Heian times, there were two ways of writing, much like we have cursive and print letters in English.
One, katakana, was more formal. The second form of writing was hiragana. Characters in hiragana are formed with simple strokes that make writing and reading easier and faster.
Over time, hiragana took its place alongside katakana as part of Japan's written language. Calligraphy skills were viewed as important as the ability to create poetry. People believed that handwriting revealed their character and goodness better than the words they used.
Wow. Okay. All right. So it had to look good. Didn't really have to, like, whatever words you had.
That's a lot of pressure.
This is a lot of pressure. All right. Women become Japan's leading writers. The female companions to the courtiers of Heian-kyo were usually selected for their intelligence. Women led in the flowering of Japanese literature in the golden age of the 10th and 11th centuries.
The best known Heian writer was Murasaki Shikibu, often referred to as the Lady Murasaki. Her novel, The Tale of Genji, is a Heian masterpiece and is today considered one of the great works of world literature.
All right, The Tale of Genji is often called the world's first novel. The book follows the life of Genji, a fictional prince, and paints a vivid picture of life in Heian court.
The other leading writer of this time was Sei Shonagon. Like The Tale of Genji, Shonagon's Pillow Book presents a detailed picture of life in Heian-kyo. Pillow Book is a collection of clever stories, character sketches, conversations, descriptions of art and nature, and various lists.
All right, moving on to section 8, the end of the Heian period. The Heian period is known as Japan's golden age of peace. However, despite the glittering imperial court, problems were brewing that would bring an end to this flourishing cultural era. Aristocrats in Heian-kyo lived very well, but in Japan's rural areas, most people were quite poor. The wealthy looked down on the poor and ignored their problems.
The practice of giving large estates to top nobles slowly eroded the emperor's power. Those who owned these estates paid no taxes.
Japan's rulers began to lose control. Bandits roamed the countryside, and people of different religions began to band together to attack and rob one another. The government was now too weak to provide law enforcement, so estate owners created their own police forces and armies to protect their lands.
By the 12th century, the power of some local lords rivaled that of the weakened imperial government. By 1180, there was civil war in Japan.
In 1185, Minamoto Yoritomo, with the head of a military family, seized power. A new era began in which military leaders controlled Japan.
Section 9, the effect of the Heian period on Japan today. As you have learned, the Heian period witnessed the birth of a unique Japanese culture, and the effects of this cultural flowering are still felt today.
Heian authors influenced many later Japanese writers. The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikubu and Pillow Book by Sei Shonagon are classics that are as basic to Japanese culture as Shakespeare's works are to the English-speaking world.
Heian influence is also seen in modern poetry. The short poems called tango were very popular in Heian times, and this type of poetry remains a vibrant part of Japanese literature.
Modern Japanese drama also shows Heian influences. Bugaku led to Japan's unique no theater.
Our lesson summary. In this lesson, you learned about the golden age of Japanese culture called the Heian period.
A new capital and the Fujiwara family. In 794, the Emperor Kamu built a new Japanese capital, Heian-kyo, marking the beginning of the Heian period. Aristocrats, especially the Fujiwara family, dominated the new imperial court and helped to create a uniquely Japanese culture.
Social position, beauty and fashion, and entertainment. Born into a particular social rank, the aristocrats of Heian-kyo lived in great luxury. They prized beauty, elegance, and correct manners.
Sculpture, painting, writing, and literature. Heian artists created new Japanese forms of sculpture and painting. Court women, such as Lady Murasaki, wrote classic works of Japanese literature.
The end of the Heian period and its effects. The Heian period ended in civil war and the rise of new military leaders. However, the effects of this golden age are still felt in Japan today. Japan's culture has remained fairly constant since the Heian period, especially in literature and drama.
All right, again, you guys, we have our guiding question. What was life like for aristocrats during the Heian period? And now we should have a pretty good idea about it.
And our vocabulary, courtier, Heian period, and the tale of Genji.
All right, you guys, you're the best.
Have a great day.